Hi, this is Jim Seimas and
Andrew Matheson with the Santa Cruz Sentinel.
Cool. We just got through week 0 of the football season. We saw some pretty good games last week. We're just going to talk about a few of them real quick for you. First off, last week I saw Greenfield at St. Francis. Greenfield pulled away 35-19. St. Francis looked good though. They were battling numbers, but I was real impressed with Nick Ciandro, their sophomore quarterback. He passed for 284 yards, a school record for a single game, threw for 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Had plenty of targets, and they ran the ball well with Jonathan Carmona. But Nate Ceballos and Garrett Salcedo were really good on the receiving end of things. Salcedo went down with the injury, but they looked real explosive to me.
Okay, yeah. On Friday night, I was over down in Watsonville watching MVC take on Del Mar, and it was pretty much a blowout from the start. It was 64-0 the final, which was kind of surprising just because Del Mar, they returned a couple of key players, including their quarterback, who was the junior of the year in the previous year and threw for more than 1,000 yards and about 17 touchdowns. On Friday night against MVC, I think he was 1 for 16 for 0 yards and 3 interceptions. So difficult to read MVC basically in that type of game, just because their opponent was not up to their skill level basically. But what we did see, Nick Matasevich looked solid. Some of their key players wise, Cody Washington running back, Hugo Renteria running back. They're going to be in and out of the line. A lot of key pieces for MVC, which is what we were expecting offensively.
64-0 or something?
64-0. Yeah. It was running clock in the 4th quarter, so like I said, it was difficult to kind of gauge.
They'll be good.
They'll be good, but I don't know 64-0 good every week.
Yeah.
They play Berean Christian this week from Walnut Creek, so hopefully that'll be a better test for them.
Well, that said, St. Francis hosts King City on Friday night at Cabrillo, I believe. Mm-hmm. Moving on to our Saturday day games last week, checked out PV at Harbor in Santa Cruz. And Harbor ended up winning that game 27-12. They scored a couple of late touchdowns in the end of the 2nd quarter and the end of the game. So they pulled away, looked good. They looked great actually comparatively to in years past. I mean, they had numbers, they had excitement, they were fired up. And why wouldn't you be when you're handing the ball off to Garrett Fonseca? And he's 6'1", 191 pounds, just a horse actually. They just ran him and without end. And he had 24 carries for 148 yards. So they looked really good, and they had a sophomore quarterback as well, Milo Small, who was 5 of 13 for 62 yards. He looked good as well. But they're still adding the pieces out there at Harbor, but they look much improved.
Okay. Yeah. No, on Saturday I was over at Scotts Valley watching Scotts Valley versus Evergreen Valley. This was kind of the first preseason test, obviously, for Scotts Valley. They have a very difficult preseason. They're heading over to Texas as we speak, I think, or actually tomorrow morning, on Wednesday morning, they'll be heading over to Texas. But against Evergreen Valley, it was kind of a typical Scotts Valley game. Good defense, solid running game, and when needed, they opened up the playbook and got the trick plays. They don't call them trick plays, though. They call them touchdown plays, as I found out after the game. I think they ran 2 reverse passes and a halfback pass. The 2 reverse passes both went for touchdowns. But the big story for them, running-wise, was Ari Wargon. Of course, they graduated Colin Corbella last year. He had 1,800 yards, single-season school record for them. Wargon comes out, runs the ball 25 times for 196 yards. Yeah. So, same story, different year almost for Scotts Valley, it seems, at least in the first game. They've... like I said, they have 2 quarterbacks. Their starters, Garrett Johnston. Mm-hmm. They got Jake Lobo, who comes in a little bit as well. And when they do run those trick plays, those touchdown plays, that backup quarterback is huge. That kid that can come in and just kind of throw the ball and maybe give defenses a different look. So, Scotts Valley looked good. Nice.
Now, I left off one player. You remind me of Anthony Cantrell at Paro Valley. Had a fabulous game. He'll be a guy to watch. He's only a junior for Paro Valley. I wanted to give them a little love. He had 17 carries for 141 yards, and he had an interception. And he also had a couple of touchdown receptions. So he's a guy to watch.
Okay.
So next week, speaking of guys to watch, this coming week, week 1, we have...
Week 1, or week 2, wherever you live, I guess. Well, the big one is the big rivalry, Watsonville, Santa Cruz. It's considered We don't know how far back it goes. It goes back more than 100 years.
More than 100 years.
Generally speaking. But it's one of the oldest one in California. Watsonville, for all the stat heads, owns the record all-time series, 52 to 37 to 5. But Santa Cruz has won the last 2 years. I mean, what can we kind of expect? I know Santa Cruz loves to run the ball, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, they have 3 big backs and a speedy quarterback. I think it should be a great game. I think Santa Cruz will bounce back from last week's blowout to Menlo, and you know, Wattsville playing under a new first-year coach. It should be exciting. You know, there's a lot of this series still means something. They made an effort to keep this thing going. They want to, you know, when Wattsville jumped back to Monterey Bay League, you know, their annual meeting went to non-league games, and they made every effort to keep this thing going. So that's pretty exciting. Big game for both teams.
And Wattsville had a bye last week, so they had an extra week to prepare for Santa Cruz and look up game film and kind of focus on the things that they didn't like during the Jamboree. They finished 4th out of 4 teams at their Jamboree, behind PV, behind Seaside, behind MVC. And like you said, John Montante is their new head coach. He used to be at Marina. He used to be at a school up in Washington. He was also an assistant at Monterey. So he's been around. He knows his stuff, obviously. They're going to be running a spread option with quarterback Eddie Mares and running back Roger Contreras. The other game that we're looking at is probably the game that we're not going to go to.
Yeah, you can't see, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
You know, we have Scotts Valley going to San Angelo Central in Texas. Played in front of, you know, 12,000 plus fans. I think they're expecting a little bit more than that.
The stadium holds 17,000, I think.
Yeah.
So it's big. It's big Texas football.
It's where San Angelo State plays. So
yeah.
You know, believe they're 7th out of trip state.
7th out of trip. Yep.
Excuse me, I said that backwards. But anyway, so Louis Walters has those guys going, like you mentioned, Oregon. It should be an exciting game. San Angelo is pretty young, but they're just reloading out there, so they'll be fine. It should be a high shootout type game.
Yeah, I mean, last week they lost, but they lost 41 to 40. So, I mean, you know, whatever you can make out of that. A couple of stats to pass along. Their big offensive guy is a guy named Mickey Scott. He ran the ball 79 yards last time, threw the ball for 320 yards.
Wow.
And according to the newspaper down there, the San Angelo Standard Times, Nick Barron set a school record with receptions in the first half, and the quarterback Scott had a school record for completions. So obviously a high-powered offense.
Definitely.
Scotts Valley will sure to have their hands full
this week. The biggest game probably this weekend is maybe Soquel at Carmel.
Yeah, I mean, if you like offense, that's probably the place to be at Carmel on Saturday at 2 p.m. Last year they played, Carmel won 69 to 42, but they lost their big piece, of course, the quarterback Devin Pearson. He was kind of their all-around athlete at Carmel, but I would imagine it's going to be just as high scoring.
Yeah.
Just Carmel still has plenty of athletes on that team, as does Soquel. We've talked about them plenty of times. Next game also at 2 p.m. on Saturday is Harbor-Stevenson. Harbor could be 2-0 after this game. Stevenson's pretty small in numbers. I don't want to be quoted, but I heard maybe around 20 players total, so they might be able to take advantage of that.
Harbor could finish this preseason 4-0. They have the schedule to do it. I'm not kidding.
Also, we have PG against Pajaro Valley. Pacific Grove lost their running back, I know, from last year at about 1,400 yards. But talking to Joe Gregorio, the PV coach, he says they're a little more well-balanced. They may be throwing the ball a little bit more. They're usually traditionally a run-first offense, though. And on Saturday night, down at Aptos, we have the JC opener, Los Medanos versus Cabrillo. At 7 p.m.
Los Medanos, I believe, beat Hartnell last week
in overtime.
Yeah, it was crazy. But you know, Cabrillo was playing its first game, so the first game jitters, whatever. You know, I'm sure Medanos worked out some of the kinks, but it still should be good. I know a lot of Cabrillo coaches are very optimistic about what they have coming in this season.
Cool. Well, we're going to be hopefully doing 2 videos a week from now on, a post-wrap and a pre-game. This was kind of both because we forgot to do it earlier this week. But yeah, we should have 2 videos in the upcoming weeks. And anything else you want to say?
Have a great weekend.
See you later.